Andrea Leadsom,
Okay.
if you have anything
Thank
you
you,
want
Chairman.
to add.
Yes, I do. Yes, absolutely. To add, or am I coming on to my set? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Whatever you want.
Governor, presumably Scotland could decide for independence to join the EU and to apply for European Banking Union, since European Banking Union isn't only available to those who are part of the Eurozone. So under those circumstances, can you just talk us through what would then be the implications for the Bank of England? Presumably the then Scottish banks would be regulated by the ECB, not by the Bank of England. And what would then be the consequences for monetary union under those circumstances? Is that more or less likely to be available to the Scottish?
Well, there would be advantages of that arrangement in terms of an established, about to be newly established single supervisory mechanism, although, as you're no doubt aware, the single supervisory mechanism of the ECB also relies on national supervisors for smaller local firms, so there would need to be some capacity built up there. It has the advantage, obviously, of having a single resolution mechanism as well, which solves one of the issues, addresses one of the issues. It doesn't have the advantage of a common deposit guarantee scheme, which still would need to be built up, and it would be a matter to be determined in terms of the lender of last resort arrangements between Scottish institutions and the ECB, or more likely some determination within a currency union with the Bank of England. Does it make it more viable? It's a mechanism. There obviously, as we've been discussing, there's a wide range of factors which would determine viability. And viability in a currency union it's a bit like being pregnant. You can't be half viable in a currency union.
It's like being pregnant.
Well, it is in that you need all the components. You need all the components. So it advances it. It would advance it, but the other elements would need to be put in place. So you have to look at the package of elements.
Okay. Does the Bank of England have any statutory or historical or moral or in any sense need to help Scotland to determine its own monetary and independence arrangements in the event that it votes for independence? So would you feel you ought to, or do you feel you have to take steps to put them in a good position? Because quite clearly, if Scotland does vote for independence and then, as you've just indicated, puts in place 6 billion of foreign reserves, that's not going to cut much mustard, if we can use some peculiar analogies. And so what would the Bank of England expect to do, and what thoughts have you had in terms of how you might have to or want to help them?
Well, there are political decisions. There would be political decisions that would need to be taken in the event of a yes vote for independence. We would very much adopt the position of being guided by, in these fundamental issues, almost constitutional issues, being guided by our political masters. We obviously would execute against that. So
sorry, are you specifically saying you would only help them if you were told by the government of the day to help them to put in place their own financial arrangements?
There is as I said at the start of my speech, we're not constitutional lawyers at the Bank of England. Should be evident by my testimony today. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. So we're not the ones to make those determinations. Others will make those determinations. Others will decide.
Okay, so to be clear then, the Bank of England has no statutory obligation to support Scottish separate financial arrangements.
The constitutional question, and I get as far as the question, not the answer, is, in my reading of it, is who's the continuing entity? That's an international question. It's a domestic question. So under the bank, the various statutes that govern the Bank of England, is the rest of the UK the continuing entity? Others will determine the answers to those questions. I'm not qualified to answer that question. That will determine the actions of the Bank of England.
Okay.
What we will do, and what we have done, is provide, as we would to any political party in advance of a major political event, provide technical assistance and perspective to the interested parties, which we have done to the Scottish Government, and we will continue to do as it is requested.
So with a financial stability hat on, would you see the financial stability of an independent Scotland as only, for example, equally important as your interest as Governor of the Bank of England in the financial stability of the Eurozone? Is it equivalent, or is there more
interest in the financial stability of the Eurozone is very high, and so it's not a bad analogy, because given the structure of and the interlinkages between the financial system in Scotland and that in the rest of the UK, it would be material, yes.
Okay, thank you. Final question. Would Scotland need to establish its own currency before joining the euro, or could it apply to join the euro straight away, in your opinion?
Again, a question of continuing states and European law in this case. But if I take President Barroso's comments as the starting point, Scotland would have to apply to join the European Union. That application, as for any new application to join the European Union, would include a commitment to join the euro in the full, not just take the acquis, but to join the euro in the fullness of time.